Good afternoon, everyone, and a very happy new year to you. And also, I wanted to wish you prosperity in the year of the tiger. Thank you all for joining us on this exciting afternoon. Today, we are going to discuss the palm oil situation in Bangladesh and what are the likely future market trends. We are indeed very, very fortunate to have this 1 hour session on the subject where we are going to look at what is the current edible oil market in Bangladesh, and then what is the role of palm oil in the edible oil consumption in Bangladesh. We will also look at how is palm oil contributing to the achievement of the sustainable development goals, which is extremely critical today. And we will also look at, how is the consumption trend changing in Bangladesh and how palm oil is critical to meeting the increasing demands of the people in Bangladesh. So we are indeed fortunate to have a very exciting and knowledgeable list of speakers with us. We have Tanshri Datuk, Dr. Yusuf, to start off the session, and then we have a key speaker in Mr. Tariq, followed by two discussants, Mr. Fakhrul Alam and Dr. Octarina. So we have an hour-long session lined up for you. Thank you for joining all on time. We'll start with, of course, the opening remarks, and then we'll have about 15 minutes for our key speakers, followed by 10 minutes of the discussants. And then we will have an open Q&A discussion session. So I think if you all look into your Zoom, you will find that there is a Q&A section. So feel free, as we go along this webinar, to put in your questions, and we will take them towards the end of this webinar. The aim is to make it as interactive as possible and try to answer questions wherever you have. Since we have this exciting panel, they will try to answer whatever questions you have on the palm oil or on the Bangladesh market. So I think before we start, I think we would look to just do a little bit of testing of each of our knowledge on how are we doing on palm oil, how much we understand the market, or how much we understand its usage. So with that, I think a poll will come up on your screen very shortly. All you have to do is very quickly answer it. It won't take much time. There are just 6 questions, and you could start answering each question. So I would say, without much ado, please go ahead and start answering the questions that you see now on your screen. Okay, so I think these were some of the questions that were there. So for people who got their answers right, that's great. But I think for the rest, I think it is just, maybe, many of you don't know, but palm oil globally is used in 50% of the packaged products that we find in the supermarkets. And it could range, not just for the edible oil that you see in the bottles out there, but it's also there, in the cookies, chips, noodles, chocolate, shampoo, soap, toothpaste. So palm oil is all pervasive. And I think this is something very, very important for us to know, that it is critical for us globally. The other thing I think that is very, very important is, as compared to maybe other palm oils is the only one among various edible oils which has a mandatory certification program. Now, this is something that we don't see in other edible oils, but this is something that the palm oil industry has taken upon as an initiative to have a mandatory certification program. The other thing which is very, very important, on why palm oil ranks up among the other edible oils, is that it contributes to the sustainable development goals. Not 1, not 2, but nearly 19 sustainable goals are benefited by palm oil, which includes economic growth, it contributes to poverty alleviation, it improves food security, besides providing a source of alternative energy. So palm oil is also great from contributing to our sustainable development goals. And finally, given the limited land area we have, palm oil provides, more oil on the same land that we have as compared to any other crop. So if you really look at numbers, palm oil requires 8 times less land and still ends up producing 20 times more oil. So palm oil is really good from the land use area perspective and the yield perspective. So I think these are some facts that we just wanted people on the webinar, many of you know, which is evident from the answers that you provided. But I think this is something that we just wanted to reiterate at this point in the webinar. Next. So I think without further ado, I think we are really honored to have Tanshri Datuk, Dr. Yusuf, who is the Executive Director of the Council of Palm Oil Producing Countries with us. I would really like now to invite Tanshri to give us his opening remarks and lay the context for this particular session. Tanshri.
Thank you, Mr. Yash. Good afternoon or good morning to everyone, all distinguished speakers and participants. I would like to thank everyone for joining another session of our CPOPC webinar series titled Palm Oil and Future Market Trends in Bangladesh. It is always a great pleasure to speak for and on behalf of the Council during this event, and it is an honor to welcome everybody to this afternoon in spite of your daily commitment, and to listen to key palm oil experts and their views on the trends in Bangladesh. I would like also to thank my fellow speakers, as mentioned earlier, for their generous time in sharing with us their knowledge this afternoon. As we all know, palm oil is available in almost every household in Bangladesh and in the food and hotel industries. I've said this before, and I will say it again, that most of the Bangladeshi dishes that we are familiar with, such as kachi, biryani, kichuri, pakoras, and many others, use palm oil because the oil quality influences the flavor and stability of the food, and not to mention, it has plenty of health benefits, such as vitamin E, and in some cases, beta-carotene as well, or vitamin A. Additionally, palm oil is also the most affordable oil compared to other plant-based oils, and by far the most sustainable and environmentally friendly oil crops, as it requires the least land to produce a given quantity of oil and least inorganic fertilizer inputs to attain high yields, thus promoting forest conservation and sustainability of supply. It is also one of the most versatile and efficient vegetable oils out of all the vegetable oils in the market. I would like to emphasize that Bangladesh plays an important role in the global economic scene for palm oil, as it is one of the largest importers of palm oil in the world today. The long-term economic growth in Bangladesh has seen a significant growth in the consumption of edible oils and fats. Seeing this upward trend, palm oil producers are responsible to meet the consumers' increasing demand in Bangladesh for sustainable palm oil. I think we could later hear of the role of palm oil in providing meeting various sustainable goal objectives of the SDGs. My point I wish to share in this early message here is that as responsible suppliers, we need to assure our importers like Bangladesh that palm oil is produced sustainably to benefit all stakeholders. We are not like the allegations made by the EU, allegation of blaming palm oil or oil palm plantation as the cause of deforestation and global warming. Nothing anywhere near the truth with that kind of allegation. Oil palm is part of our agriculture sector, which occupies a very small percentage of the country land area compared to the agriculture sector in other countries, especially in Europe. And as you know, all agriculture sector, the land was previously, maybe forest land. But in case of oil palm, we have zoned our land area for agriculture development. And that means we are not the cause of deforestation, because these are agriculture areas that we have zoned for development of agriculture crops like oil palm. And therefore, given the high yield of the oil palm, the amount of agriculture land occupied by this crop and agriculture crop as a whole is very small for Malaysia and for Indonesia as well. 5% of Indonesian total land is occupied by oil palm. And that is very small. And in Malaysia, maybe 15% or 20, even 20%. But that is the whole of, almost the whole of our agriculture sector, because we only need to grow oil palm because it brings maximum benefit, maximum revenue, maximum yield of oil. And we even offer employment to even Bangladesh workers whenever they seek opportunities to be employed in the oil palm industry. So this is a win-win situation for people of the developing countries, like us. So this is why we are always sharing this information to make sure that our importing partners like Bangladesh for our commodity is never influenced in a negative way by all the anti-palm oil campaign being orchestrated by the European. They have a reason for this. They want to protect their agriculture crop from being outcompeted by palm oil. So that is their problem. But I think in our situation, we are supplementing various shortages of oils and fats for various countries. And that's why we become a very important partner in ensuring affordability for and food security for requirements of many developing countries who are themselves having a shortage on their own production of oil, vegetable oils in their countries. So with that, I thought it is worth pointing out that we don't do this seminar just for the usual promoting of good supplier and buyer relationship for palm oil, but maybe to also prepare you that the business in the palm oil industry is such that being successful, we have to face the challenges imposed by those who are making it difficult for them to compete with our highly efficiently produced palm oil. Thank you very much for your attention. I thought it is worth mentioning that part, which is outside my text of on this written speech. So with that, I wish you a more successful webinar. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Back to
Thanks
you,
a lot.
Yash.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tanshri. I think those comments were very, very valuable, telling us both about palm oil, the Bangladesh market, and most importantly, clearing some of the misinformation that prevails around the palm oil. So thank you, Tanshri. I think we will move on to our key speaker today. We are indeed fortunate to have Mr. Tariq Ahmed with us, who brings with him more than 42 years of experience in this field. While he's currently with the TK Group of Industries, which is one of the largest corporations in Bangladesh, he has also earlier worked with Unilever Group and is currently one of the biggest importers of palm oil into Bangladesh. So, Mr. Tariq, thank you very, very much for joining us. I think we really look forward to hearing from you on the palm oil market in Bangladesh and what are the future trends as you see it. With that, welcome, Mr. Tariq. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Yash. Assalamu alaikum and greetings to you all. Before I present my papers, I would like to thank very much to Tan Sri Datuk Yusufaran for his valuable remarks and insight to the audiences which he has given on the palm oil industry as a whole. Let me tell about Bangladesh first in my few slides. In the first slide, Bangladesh is a country of 1,000 rivers, like 1,000 islands in Indonesia. It's a country with 1,000 rivers and very fertile soil, which is accumulated through the monsoon season. And during the season, Bangladesh, almost 2/3 of the country goes underwater for a very brief period. And this alluvial soil, which comes in, brings in with the water from the Himalayas. So that in itself makes Bangladesh a very fertile land. And in this context, I would like to say now Bangladesh population is 170 million. And if you think of the density, it's one of the most densely populated country in the world, with almost close to 1,200 people per square kilometers. Way back in the 70s, before our independence in 71, our population was 75 million. And during that time, we used to produce rice is our staple food. Rice, fish is our staple food. There was a shortage of 4 million tons, and that used to be imported. That 4 million tons needed to be imported to feed the people in this part of the world, in Bangladesh, what is now Bangladesh. But now, after 50 years, the population has more than doubled, and it is 170 million living on the same space of land. We have doubled our rice cultivation to 38 million ton. Fish to 4.5 million ton. Feeding our own people, no need to be imported. And we are also self-sufficient in the production of vegetables. So let me talk about the demographic profile of the country. Bangladesh is a very young population. Almost 46% of the population are under the age of 24. And if you talk of the working people, that is up to the age of 50, 60, if I consider, almost 75% of the people are working, and aged above 60, 65 are only 7 to 15%. So that in itself speaks of the country's potential to move forward. The young population amongst the younger generation, 94% of the population of this group are literate. And the technical education level in this country is improving, both to a national standard, and also there are institutions which provides international standard educations. If kindly go to the next slide. As if you talk of GDP, Bangladesh GDP is $409 billion nominal value. But if you talk of purchasing power parity, it's fairly 1.07 trillion. It's fairly a large size economy. That in itself talk of the production, the local produce that is there. So as a result, the purchasing power parity is very encouraging in Bangladesh. If you look at the growth chart, in 2019, Bangladesh was growing above 8%. But come 2020, with this COVID-19, we took a beating, and like every country in the world. It came down to 3.5 because from 25th of March onward, the lockdown started in Bangladesh. And industries were closed, working partially, with half labor force. And as a result, up to third quarter, we were under this COVID. From fourth quarter, it started to open up, and then we showed some signs. And in 21, we managed to improve ourselves from 2020 situation to 2021 to 5.8%. This is the government figure. And in 2022, as per IMF, we see a growth of 6.9%. But Bangladesh government is very optimistic. They are projecting 7.2% plus growth. Can you move over to the next slide, please? Bangladesh per capita income is $2,500. But on a purchasing power parity, it is $6,380. And we have a reserve of $48 billion. And as I mentioned earlier, that of this 170 million people, the younger generation consists of the bulk of the population. And by the estimates, there are almost 15 million people working abroad from Bangladesh. And they send an annual remittance of $25 billion. That's through the formal channel. And through informal channel is close to that figure. 50% of the figure comes through informal channels. And Bangladesh, can we go to the previous slide, please? Bangladesh exports. We are the second largest exporter of garments after China. In 2022, we are looking at a target of $50 billion in exporting garments, plus another $10 billion in other exports. So we see a $60 billion export from Bangladesh. Next slide, please. Now let me give you a 2021 scenario of edible oil in Bangladesh. Total imports of palm oil is 1,350,000 tons, and CDSBO were imported 760,000 tons. And from the local crushing of beans, which is being imported, is another 400,000 tons. And small portion of mustards are growing in certain parts of the country. That comprises around 80,000 tons. So 52% of the total edible oil market in Bangladesh is from palm oil, and 29% and from soybean imported, and 15.6% is from solvent extractions. Please to the next slide. Let's see in 21, palm oil 54%, soybean 46%. That's still encouraging for palm. 54 and 46. And I'll be showing a slide way back to 2013. That's a very interesting slide. Next slide, please. In 2013, 30% were soybean oil and 70% were palm. And in terms of imports, 1,260,000 tons of palm oil were imported in 2013 from both Indonesia and Malaysia, and 500,000 plus were from South America, the CDSBO. So 70-30 ratio was in 2013. Can you go back to the previous slide? 54-46. So palm, to the extent where it should have grown, did not grow. Let me see what are the reasons. Why hasn't it grown to the extent where soybean being always $120 to $150 more a premium than palm? I'm not talking of 2021. In general, $120 to $150 premium over palm. Palm should have grown, but it did not grow to that extent. Can we move to the next slide, please? So in 2013, 70% palm, 30% soybean. In 2021, 54% palm and 46% soybean oil. Why? It's because there has been a growth in dairy industry, poultry, and meat industry. It's share because of with the increased earnings of the people, there was need for enhanced protein level. And this industry had really developed from after 2013 till 2021. And it's growing. The meal demand is there. On an average, last year in 2021, beans to the extent of 2.2 million tons of beans were imported from South America, and around 300,000 tons of meal were imported. But with this growing demand, we see in 2022, the soybean would be to the extent of 3 million ton would be imported soybean. So of this 3 million ton, if we get an average of 18.5% oil, this would be met. And country has a capacity of solvent extraction of 5 million tons. This in itself is a challenge to the palm oil industry for growth of palm in Bangladesh. Palm is a universal oil in Bangladesh. It is known from a small shop in the village to a superstore in the city. But in 2021, because palm oil prices in general, particularly in lesser developed countries like Bangladesh, where we see is highly sensitive, price sensitivity is more, and to a certain extent, political sensitivity is also there. Government always keep a watch on the increase in price of oil, and that's also considered to be one of the index of government's success and failure to an extent for not being able to control the prices. So the sensitivity of the price is there related to oil, and in particular, palm oil. So here, my question to our friends in Indonesia and in Malaysia, are they harnessing the potential of Bangladesh market for palm oil industry, palm oil in market in Bangladesh? That's the thing that I think all of us will have to work together. Palm oil is a healthy oil, no doubt. People are fully aware of. It's a universal oil. It can be used as Datu Tansri has mentioned. You cook with a biryani or you cook a good fish, the flavor of the fish or the biryani remains enhanced or intact at least, and it doesn't influence the food. So that's a big advantage. And with that, palm should be moving forward. But price sensitivity is the question. Now, with this price that has been prevailing for the last 2 years, the palm oil prices, it has gone to beyond the limit of the purchasing power by the general public. Here, I would like to mention, in 2020, there had been a demand destruction in Bangladesh due to COVID. And that effect had truly come into palm oil, not to the extent in soybean oil. Why? The soybean oil, whatever had been consumed, was in branded form and mostly limited to urban and district level towns, not to the rural areas. But palm oil is wide across the country. That mostly consumed in what we call dhaba or horecas. That is one of the major outlets, and to the food in processing industry. And food processing industry also had taken a hit because most of the shops were remaining closed due to COVID. So their production had dropped. And as a result, the demand destruction came mostly on the palm oil or RBD palm oil. So here I would ask our good partners in Malaysia and in Indonesia, where we had been doing business for long, and Bangladesh people are very familiar with these two countries as a friendly and brotherly country. And we look forward that how the palm oil potential can be enhanced in Bangladesh market. Thank you very much to you all for participating. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Tariq. I think that was very, very informative. I think you have left us with the question for which exactly we have two more discussant to really focus on, is the Malaysian and Indonesian palm oil industry able to fully harness the market in Bangladesh, and what can really be done. So I think with that, we will first hear from Mr. Fakhrul Alam, who was the former regional manager for the Malaysian Palm Oil Council. So I think he understands the Bangladesh market, and also, what has been Malaysia's strategy in working in the Bangladesh market. So I think Mr. Fakhrul Alam brings to us more than 25 years in the palm oil industry, and he understands, in addition to Bangladesh, also Myanmar and Sri Lanka. And so I think with that, I would like to invite Mr. Fakhrul Alam to share with us his perspectives, which will be very valuable to understand how are we losing market share in palm oil in Bangladesh. With that, Mr. Fakhrul Alam, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Yes. Do you hear me clearly?
Yeah, we can hear you very clearly.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Tamsi Datu, Yusuf President, Executive Director, CPOPC, Mr. Yes Kansai, Deputy Managing Director, India, and APOC Worldwide, keynote speaker, Mr. Tariq Ahmed, Senior Director, TK Group of Industries, Dr. Octarina, Researcher, Indonesian Oil Palm Research Institute, and audience, a very good afternoon. Yeah, Mr. Tariq rightly pointed out the issue why palm oil market share in Bangladesh is declining, which was over 70%, 75% in the early of 2007, 2008, 2009 until the 2015. It is the price. Main strength of palm oil is price. Palm oil, there are the three sectors. Earlier there were two sectors for where the palm oil goes. One is local food processing industries, and the other one is homestead use of palm oil as cooking oil. Bangladesh, it is a population of 170 million population. Now, earlier it was 160 or 155. But almost 70% of the population are a low income group. They generally they used to go for the cheaper one, and they were the main consumer of palm oil and the main strength of palm oil. As long as price difference between the soybean oil and palm oil is significant, palm oil would go fast. But if this price is minimized, then the people will go for soybean. As soon as solvent extraction plant are commissioned in Bangladesh, it first came in 1998, and now the capacity of total solvent extraction plant increased up to 5 billion ton, and they are producing about 500,000 ton of soybean oil. That is, and this 500,000 ton of soybean oil, they just snatching the share of palm oil. It was a market of palm oil. By this time, palm oil market should have reached 2 million ton. But because of this soybean oil supplying from the solvent extraction plant, they are snatching the share of palm oil. How? The import of soybean is VAT-free, value-added tax, which is 15% on the oil, on any types of oil. People have to pay 15% value-added tax. But the bean, what is importing, that is free from, that is exempted from paying the value-added tax. And even the oil obtained from this bean also free from VAT. So that oil is almost 15% cheaper compared to the palm oil. And that is the main factor. As long as the oil is entering into the market from the solvent extraction plant, people are gradually switching over to soybean oil. Because 2 taka, 3 taka difference per liter, people don't bother. Earlier, there was a difference from 7 to 10 taka per liter between the palm oil and the soybean oil. When the people are found there is a little difference between the soybean and palm, in that case, they prefer to switch over to bean oil. This is the main reason which Mr. Tarek highlighted, the declining of market share of palm oil. Now, almost 50 to 52% total market share of oils and fat is under palm oil, and it will remain because the palm oil consuming sector, the major sector, is food processing industries, shortening industries, and then the HoReCa, they will continue to use the palm oil because of its compatibility. The product they produces are very much conducive for use the palm oil. It gives the shelf life, gives the taste and the structure. That's why they prefer palm oil. And the shortening industry, it is economic to produce shortening from the palm oil. And the consumption of shortening is growing because of increase of food processing industries. Demand of processed foods now Bangladesh is growing because of rapid urbanization. As you know, the GDP is growing steadily in Bangladesh, so the people have money to buy food at a better price, and people are going to switch over from the traditional food, rice, curry, dal, etc., to the processed food. And then they are going also to the eateries. For last 2-3 years or 4 years, numbers of new eateries were open in the country. People are going their lunch or dinner to the outside of the house, and these are contributing to some extent. Otherwise, palm oil import share would have been declined further. But because of this food processing industries, shortening industry, and the HoReCa, this consumption of palm oil is steady at 50-52%. It will continue, but the consumption at the homestead level in the rural area, that is declining because of the availability of cheaper soybean oil. So now the time has come to look at the price. Per ton difference, if the per ton difference at 300 kilogram between the soybean and palm is $100 to $150, then the palm oil would move. But if the difference is less than that, if it comes down to $50, then people will prefer to use the bean oil because of perception. Traditionally, Bangladesh was a soybean oil market. Since 1963, soybean is being consumed. So the people has got a fascination for soybean oil. Besides that, educated segment of the population who are the decision maker, they also think soybean is better than palm oil. MPOC is trying for last 25 years to change the perception. Definitely, perception has changed to some extent, but we need to go further. We need to go further. So the promotional activity need to be continued in the coming years too. So the palm oil producing countries should together how to increase the perception of the educated segment and to continue the media campaign further and further. And unless this again I should repeat, unless this price difference is not taken care, palm oil may lose market share further. It is the time to think about it, how to give maintain a price difference between the palm oil and the soybean oil. That's all.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mr. Fakhrul Alam. I think those were very valuable points, that the price difference, perception are all playing a role on why palm oil is losing market share in Bangladesh. Obviously, the demographic profile and food habits are somewhat, helping palm oil, but the price and perception continue to be two challenges. I think with that, we will move on to Dr. Octorina. I think it is good to also understand the perspectives from Indonesia, and also the fact that, Dr. Octorina is a researcher herself. She can throw some further lights into how palm oil could do better basis the challenges it is currently facing in Bangladesh. So we have, again, we are fortunate to have Dr. Octorina here, and I think I would now request her to make her remarks and deliver her presentation. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Octorina.
Okay, thank you very much, Yash, for allowing me and giving me the place to talk about Indonesian perspective. And it's really interesting. I have heard from Mr. Fahrul Alam, and I'm agree with him that Bangladesh opportunity is quite huge for Indonesia and Malaysia. Moreover, Bangladesh demography that mostly having balanced demography of younger populations and the olders, and moreover about the GDP increase that is steady along the year. It's really a good opportunity for us as the main palm oil producing countries. However, in Indonesia's perspective, we still have some homeworks, especially in terms of sustainability. And for this occasion, I would like to present, I will share my slide first. Everyone can see it. Is it visible now?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you. And I will make it as a slideshow. And this is the title of the presentation. I'm sorry, I am taking so long. Okay, yeah. So Indonesian oil palm sustainability and how to dismantling the crux of the matter. So I am Shahnaz Desta Octarina. I'm a research associate in Indonesian Oil Palm Research Institute. I'm speaking here on behalf of my institution to discuss that matter. So the outline of this presentation will be as briefly as first introduce the milestone of Indonesian palm oil, and then some current statistics, and after that some problem and how is the strategy to troubleshoot that problem, and the last is the challenges and opportunities of Indonesian palm oil industries so far. And first of all, allow me to introduce the milestone of Indonesian palm oil. Maybe some of you not really know that palm oil has been so long been introduced in Indonesia. It is more than 2 decades ago. It's starting from 1848, that back on that day we are under Dutch colonials. So the Dutch colonials bring the oil seed and planted it as ornamental plant in Bogor Botanical Garden. At that time, we never know that it can be utilized into something that really useful for us until about 200 or 2 decades later in 1911. It first already has their own commercializations in Sumatra Island, more specifically in Sungai Liput and Pulau Raja and Deli Muda plantations. And then 5 years after that, my research institute established. It has an older name as APA, or Algemene Proefstation der Afros at the time. It's still written in Dutch language. And then just 5 years before our independence, we have total palm oil area increase up to more than 100,000 hectares at the time. And then in the 70s, we received donors, or we received help from World Bank to deploy the nucleus estate smallholder plantations. So it's kind of contract farming method that incorporate smallholder estate as the nucleus and as the plasma, and the nucleus from the private or bigger estate. And after that program, in 2000, we have become the largest palm oil area in the world, and in total 4.2 million hectares at that time in 2000. And then 6 years later, we already surpassed Malaysia as the largest CPO producers. That is 17.3 million tons productions of CPO at that time. And then 2015, we also initialized the biodiesel program, and we also have CPO fund institutions to manage the CPO export levy, and then to distribute the money into smallholders activity, research and development, and for downstreaming industries. And in 2019, we have our total palm oil area in consolidations become 16 million hectares. And just last year, we already established B30 biodiesels that is become the highest biodiesel blending in the world, using 30% fatty acid methyl ester and the rest is petrodiesel. And yeah, talking about Bangladesh, I just take a look from statistic from UN Comtrade that Bangladesh palm oil import or consumption is mainly from Malaysia and Indonesia, as already discussed by Mr. Tariq. Yes, that's true. And it's in total 1.3 million palm oil consumed by the Bangladeshi people. And if you see from this time series, at the beginning, the palm oil import dominated by the Indonesians, even up until now, but the trend is starting from 2018, it's seem decreasing. By contrast, the trend for the Malaysian palm oil import is increasing. So this is the interesting trend, so we can discuss it together. But maybe we can see through Indonesian statistics that we can see here, Indonesia has grown up to 16 million hectares of oil palm land cover. And we can see from the map that it is mostly the concession is located in Sumatra Island and Borneo or Kalimantan Island. And in the highest productions is achieved by the Rio province, and the second by the North Sumatra, which is where I am now. Our institute is located in North Sumatra. And then if we see through the typology of land holdings, we can see from this circle graph in the 90s, the composition is somewhat balanced between smallholders, government, and private. But later on, the government portion is keep decreasing even until now, and the private proportion is keep increasing. And so as for the smallholders, the 40% of land holding type owned by smallholder is our main priority here, because of the problem of sustainability that I will discuss after this. But allow me to explain a little bit about the statistics of the trade balance. Here, usually Indonesia stock ending or beginning yearly range about 3,000 to 4,000, and productions coming from the CPO and the CPKO or crude palm kernel oil in total, it's up to 50,000 a million metric ton. And we have also local consumption derived from for food, oleochemical, and biodiesel, because we have higher mandatory biodiesel blending. And we also export our CPO, our refined, lauric, and biodiesel, and also oleochemical. And we can see here that our consumption plus export is exceed the total production, which means that the ending stock that remains is still 3 million metric tons. And we see here from the latest graph that our yield or productivity, it is shown by this yellow bar graph, that our productivity of oil palm on average, it can produce up to 3.7 ton of oil palm per hectares. And we can see that the the trend is somewhat fluctuated, and we can also discuss together why it is happening. It's also related with the sustainability issue. And what is the problem? The problem is the vicious cycle of the smallholders. The smallholders usually doesn't have access to good agricultural practice, and also they do not have capital or land titles or financial access to smoothen their input factors necessity. Even if they do, usually the land title is overlapping with someone else's land title, so it becomes a huge matter to be to be resolved in Indonesian case. And because of that problem, smallholders are more susceptible to land expansion, because they also seek to other income generating activities. Why? Because usually they have low productivity, they don't have capital, and then they do deforest, and they have low earnings, and it keeps perpetuating and become a vicious cycle. They also have longer value chain to sell the fresh fruit bunch to the designated meals. They also not oriented to downstream industry, and because they only sell FFB. And what can be done so far in the government side? The government has already enacted some regulations. The newest regulation is from Presidential Regulation number 44 in 2020. It's also well known as new ISPO regulations, because by 2025, the ISPO or Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil certification will be mandatory for all holding types, including the smallholders. And especially in this time, Indonesian government has targeted at least 1 million farmers get certified by the ISPO by 2025. And moreover, Indonesian government also already imposed omnibus law and give solutions for the enclave smallholders estate to convert the enclave into the social forestry. Meanwhile, in terms of the stakeholder, the solution that we can offer is, of course, the intensifications. How we can do the intensification is by performing good agricultural practice. And some of the practice of that GAP is, first, of course, the smallholders should apply the legitimate varieties, because the fact is, according to the latest study conducted by our institute, collaborate with Wageningen University and Research, there are more than 50% smallholders that using illegitimate varieties, not using high or certified yielding varieties. And this is the big issues, and we have to tackle this problem. And moreover, other things that we can do is to increase nutrient use efficiency, or NUE, by apply more environmental friendly fertilizer. And also we can also alternate the marginal land use, which utilize the land that is not really good, not really having good characteristic of soils. And the farmers or smallholder also can motivated to do diversifications by having intercropping. If you see from the initial event, you see some flyers from the CPOPC, that CPOPC also promote intercropping in the palm oil, that the palm oil plant, that individual plants not only planted by themselves only, but we can also mix some crops to be planted in the same plot. So this is the principle of diversifications, and it will bring the income and generate income for the farmers. And in terms of bioagent, we can also use a bioagent like Tito alba or owl birds to prevent some pests in the smallholder plot, and also to avoid the fires. We also have a system so-called early warning detection system. And agroforestry principle is almost similar with diversification, but for agroforestry, the mixed crop is combining the palm oil with the forest crops. And the last one of the alternative is biomass utilization income. So when smallholders have replanted the plants still can be utilized. The biomass of the plant can be utilized into some goods like briquette or pellet or for planting media for mushroom and so on. And it's really useful for smallholders. And besides that, stakeholder also can do such a partnership, a so-called pentahelix strategy. Penta means 5. So the pentahelix strategy is combined and to attach do partnership between the government, academic, media, community, and the business strategy. That's the solution that has been done by the Indonesian government so far. And talking about our SPO and ISPO, what's
Dr. Octorina, just yes? Excuse me for a sec. Maybe
yes?
if you could wrap up in the next 2 or 3 minutes, that would be really great.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry if it's taking way too long because I have a lot of things to talk, and it's really quite difficult to make it as concise. But okay, I will try my best. So this is the milestone for the RSPO and ISPO, and RSPO started from 2003, and then ISPO started in 2011 after that. And then, as I said before, that in 2019, Indonesian government has enacted regulations to make the ISPO mandatory for the smallholders. And we can see the performance now in 2021. In total, there are already 4.5 million hectares of oil palm in Indonesia certified by ISPO, and it's equivalent to 27% of total land holdings. And in total, there are 763 certificates, and the smallholder compositions that already certified, there are 14 cooperatives, 4 village unit cooperatives, 1 BUMDES or village enterprise, and 2 farmer groups. And this is, I promise this is the last slide. What is the challenge and opportunities in Indonesia's palm oil industry? First, I will talk about COVID pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia's palm oil industry is kind of blessing in disguise. I didn't say that pandemic is good, no, but in Indonesian case, we experienced a good price of palm oil in this area in this time. During the pandemic, the material compound from palm oil usually used for sanitary product, and it's really good to increase the export volume. And as we can see that Indonesia also, even after the pandemic, in the recovery, many people has really relaxed their purchasing power, and a lot of people still consume. And we can see that price of CPO is still lucrative, as we can see now. And another challenge is energy crisis. And we can see also from other international markets that oil price increase, and many people convert from fossil fuel to more renewable source, and because palm oil provide that kind of renewable alternative. So especially because palm oil can be a feedstock for biofuel and biodiesel. So palm oil is really promising in meeting this energy crisis. But we also should anticipate the challenge from the climate change, because according to our experience, climate change can happen in 2 forms. When it becomes too hot, it will become El Nino. And in the late 2019, Indonesia suffered from forest fires because of that too hot conditions. And last year, as we can see, the too wet conditions will bring the La Nina or flooding, and especially this already suffered Malaysian productions, that their productions contracted due to flood. And for the 4th challenge, the COP26, Conference of the Parties 26, where Indonesia is one of the NDC, nationally determined contributors, which by the 2060, we are committed to become the net zero emitter. So it means that we will use more and more and utilize and optimally produce palm oil to achieve this goal. And for the 5th challenge, it's smallholder replanting program. In order to meet the need for the COP26 target and energy crisis and climate change and so on, of course, we should enhance our productions. It means that we should make the target of the smallholder replanting program on target, and we should promote this program so that the target is achieved. And the last is economic shock, because we also tend to shift and dynamics because of the tariff and non-tariff barrier according to the geopolitical conditions that already happening in the ground. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for the attention. I will give it back to you, Yash. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Dr. Octarina, for further sharing what could be the problems and potential solutions for improving the market for palm oil. I think we will now go straight to the poll again. I think some of the people couldn't fill in all the answers last time, so I think we have some of the old questions and some new ones. So again, I think the request is for everybody to join in. This is very, very important for us to get your feedback on how you view the palm oil market. So please look at the questions again, and let's see, after all our panelists have spoken to you, how are your answers now? So please go ahead and start answering. We'll take a couple of minutes for doing this. And right after this, I think we will jump into the Q&A round. Okay, I will urge more of you to start answering so that we can get more representative responses and then move on to the next section of this webinar. Okay, I think we are running out of time, so we'll just do the Q&A, and if needed, we can just share quickly the results of the poll later. So I think we've got some questions on our chat box. I'll just look these up, and maybe our panelists can indulge ourselves by answering those questions. So I think the first question that we had was regarding, I will maybe direct it to you, Mr. Tariq. I think it was about, how in the imports of palm oil into Bangladesh, what is the share of Indonesia and Malaysia, from where is it more imported? And if you know any rough numbers or percentages.
Regarding that question, ballpark figure is Indonesia and Malaysia is 80-20.
Okay.
Indonesia, 20 Malaysia.
Okay, good. Mr. Fakrul, there is a quick question for you. If you can talk about the tax on soybean oil. You I think mentioned somewhere that it's not there on the soybeans which are further processed.
Yeah, no, it is the thing that there is no import duty on the palm oil, any type of palm oil, as well as crude decom soybean oil, CPOPC. There is no import duty. There is 15% value-added tax. Now the soybean, which is imported for the soybean extraction plant, that is exempted from payment of 15% value-added tax. And the oil obtained from this bean are also exempted from payment of value-added tax. So that oil is cheaper compared to the imported CPOPC as well as palm oil. That is the main issue now. And as soon as the oil started to enter into the market from the soybean extraction plant, the share of the difference of share between the palm oil and soybean oil is just minimizing. The oil coming from the soybean extraction plant is snatching the share of palm oil because of its price.
Okay, thank you. Maybe just a follow-up question. Mr. Tariq, of course, told us what are the two key challenges due to which the palm oil share is reducing. Can you tell us, what could the Malaysian palm oil industry do to address those challenges, either in terms of price or in terms of perception or in terms of branding or other issues? Is the palm oil, the producing countries, are they doing anything to address those challenges?
Who is Mr. Tariq? Okay, Mr. Tariq, you may please.
Sorry.
Mr. Fakrul, I thought that maybe you could better answer, or maybe if Dr. Rina has any views, what are the measures that the producing countries could take to address either the price challenge or the perception challenge in the Bangladesh market, so that the market share that is falling can be addressed? Or is there any incentives that you are looking for from Bangladesh so that the palm oil can maintain its market share or grow there?
If it is being my answer, there are my two challenges. One is a perception, and the second is price. If you can keep the price difference between palm and soybean oil, then market share will definitely rise. And simultaneously, we need to address the perception that activity, promotional activity, should be continued. It is a long-term activity. It is not like that I will do for 1 or 2, 3 years, then we will stop. It is not like that. It should be continued. As for example, the Malaysian Palm Oil Council has stopped their activity since the July 2021. After that, as long as MPC was active in the Bangladesh market, in the media there was no news against palm oil. But now a lot of news are coming, and some vested corner are attacking palm oil. As for example, now the trans fat issue is a vocal issue in Bangladesh. Some of the NGOs are working to highlight it, and they are targeting the Banaspati sector for this trans fat. Whereas Banaspati is 100% dependent on the palm oil. It is a big segment, almost 300,000 ton, 400,000 ton palm oil consumed in the sorting industry. If this industry is banned, then palm oil will simply lose 300,000 ton or 400,000 ton to market share. So now the issue time has come to just face this end-use activity. How the palm oil we can produce, how palm oil is trans-fat-free, shortening can be produced from palm oil. This has to be educated by the government and the concerned NGO. They should be educated by seminar, by organizing practical training, etc., etc. So the both things to go simultaneously, the price as well as perception development.
Great.
Yes,
thank you, Mr. Fakhrul.
Mr. Tarek might have some point.
I would like to add to what Mr. Fakhrul has said. You see, now if we look in the last 2 years, the price between palm and soybean is almost to hardly $40 difference, $50 difference. So already palm oil is into a different ball game as far as the price is concerned. So in this segment, in this price ball game, the perception level of palm oil has to really improve. So people are thinking that, okay, palm oil is the same oil, no difference. It's rather a better oil. I'm prepared to pay the price of soybean. Whether at that point in time, the market is $600 or $1,200. So that perception is key, my thinking.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that additional point. Dr. Okrina, just checking, as part of your research, you did tell us that the land holdings are a challenge. How do you see, since Indonesian palm oil is roughly 80% of the palm oil that gets into Bangladesh, is there any way that the price can be reduced, or do you see any measures that can be done to reduce the price of palm oil?
So I should agree with the former speakers, that Dr. Tariq and Fakhrul Alam, but allow me to add some. So in order to reduce the price, of course, it's basic supply and demand principle. If you want to have the price increase, you have to increase the supply. How to increase the supply? And I also want to answer some more related questions from Mahfuzur Rahman about biodiesel will limit supply. Moreover, it can be increased quickly. It takes 5 years to bear fruit. Yes, of course, biodiesels will limit supply. But Indonesian government, especially in our case, we also try our best to also plant the palm oil in marginal land, and not only land that's suitable for palm oil, but for land that typically sandy or land that mining or something. We develop that kind of technology so that Indonesian production's improvement is not only rely on smallholder replanting program, but also from the programs such as that kind of increasing productivity from the technology, or planting the marginal land use. That's one of the ideas from Indonesian case. But I also should agree with Dr. Tariq and Fakhrul Alam that, of course, the price of palm oil, Indonesia and Malaysia is not price maker. The price for palm oil is also depend on the spread of the price between palm oil and soybean oil, because we are completely substitute goods. So consumer will choose among those two options.
Right. Got it. Thank you. Thank you to all panelists. I think in the interest of time, I think we will move forward. I do see a couple of open questions relating to the earlier part that Tanshri mentioned to us about some misinformation coming from the European countries. And I think one of the participants also mentioned that there are issues with Sri Lanka kind of restricting supplies and other issues with some other Commonwealth countries. So I think that's there out as an open issue. I think a couple of participants also mentioned that what can the palm oil producing countries do to improve the perception or to promote the nutrition value further of palm oil in Bangladesh and other markets. So I think with that, I would also like to invite Pak Dupito, whom we are really fortunate to have, who is the Deputy Executive Director for the Council for Palm Oil Producing Countries, to please address us, give us his concluding remarks, and if possible, also try and address some of these open questions.
Thank you so much. Yes, we as producing countries should pay closer attention to the market share of palm oil vis-a-vis other oils in a major market like Bangladesh. From the explanation of the speakers, I think it is very clear that palm oil is still leading the market. But if you look at the statistics presented by Oil World, the trend is not consistent because there is a tendency that palm oil is losing ground. But there is an interesting case that in 2018, that palm oil it seemed to regain some of the loss, but ever since, I think the trend is not what we want to see. My assumption is that the reason for PO losing some ground definitely not related to sustainability, as explained by all speakers. Palm oil is way ahead of other palm oil, other oils on sustainability issue. But I think we should explain it more and more to the public in Bangladesh, as has been clearly presented by also Dr. Rina. There are a lot of positive stories and perspective to share, and also I think we can also consider, Mr. Yes, that anti-helix approach can be applied in this case. Speakers, I think, have explained excellently in an excellent manner on some of the reasons why PO palm oil is losing the market, from price to political issue. But I think the main question is now, what needs to be done individually, but preferably jointly by Indonesia and Malaysia to address this issue. Producing countries always welcome remunerative price, but like witness, in the last few, let us say 1 or 2 years. But at the same time, price is also a two-edged sword, as it reduces the market advantage of PO, compared to other vegetable oils. What is interesting is that lately there has been also some discussion here in Indonesia. What is the ideal price for PO in order to retain or to improve its market share not only in Bangladesh but also in other countries. That said, it is worth to note that one lesson learned from our last webinar, our last discussion, was to advocate the advantages of palm oil, such as suggested by Mr. Alam, on perception issue in a more targeted, continuous and effective way in close cooperation with all stakeholders. Another suggestion, perhaps, since you asked me this question and also the participant, yes, perhaps, we would expect APCO, based on the important inputs and suggestions from our main speakers, to draft concrete actionable recommendations for CPOPC, to do in the future, in order to maintain or even to strengthen its market share in Bangladesh. To conclude, again, allow me to once again thank our distinguished speakers, Dr. Ahmed, Dr. Alam, Dr. Rina, the participants, the APCO team, as well as my colleagues from the CPOPC Secretariat. Thank you, and have a nice day, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pak Diputo. I think from APCO's perspective, we will definitely put together some concrete suggestions which could be helpful to strengthen the palm oil market in Bangladesh. With that, I would just like to check, Vipin, are our survey results possible for us to share right now, or should we share it later with the participants?
Yes, yes. One journalist from the Dhaka, he just submitted a question: which oil is healthier for our human body? I think since it is from the press, I could speak just 2 lines for him.
Sure. Go ahead.
For our, you see, Mr. Mehdi, you have to look to our food habit. With our food habit, palm oil is definitely healthier compared to any other oil, not only soybean, any other oil. Our food habit, we used to cook in the noon, we take in the noon, in the lunch, we should take in the dinner, and the leftover some family takes in the morning. So you have to heat up the oil 3 times. And for these 3 times, oil will be stable, only the palm oil will be stable if you heat it up for 3 times. Any other oil will not stable. So the palm oil is healthier for the Bangladesh community. I think, in short, I have replied to your question.
So thank you, Fakhrul ji, for answering that question. I think we will also reach out to you, Mr. Mehdi Al-Amin, and point you to some literature that exists regarding the comparison between palm oil and soybean, and also with special reference to how it applies to the food habits. Okay, so I think we have some quick results that, so generally people do understand that, palm oil is there in all of the above products. So the understanding of palm oil that way, 79% of the people have said that palm oil is there in soaps, lipstick, biscuits, chocolate, everything. So that's good. I think on the second one also, yeah, I think 53% people could say that, it contributes to 11 SDG goals, which is nice. I think on the per capita consumption of palm oil also, we have 68% saying yes. Okay, I think here on question 4, what we see is that on a scale of 1 to 5, the 5 rating is there by 26%, and 4 rating is higher. So I think that brings us back to the question of doing more promotion and perception on palm oil, so that we can get these 4 rating people also to 5 on palm oil. Yeah, I think most people know that, palm oil is the only oil to have certification schemes. And I think on sustainability also, we are scoring well. And I think we are 100% that after this webinar, people are more knowledgeable on palm oil. So I think definitely 2 key takeaways. One is that this webinar was useful. 100% people are more knowledgeable on palm oil. And I think we do need to improve perception and promotion of palm oil so that more people understand it. So I think it's good. I think I would like to thank you again, all the participants for staying with us a little longer and then also participating in the poll. Thank you very much. And I think as part of CPOPC, I think we will keep doing such webinars which will increase your knowledge on palm oil and help you choose the right edible oil for your food. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to meeting you on our next webinar.
Thank you, Yes. Thank you, Mr. Ahmed.
Thank you all.
Dr. Rina.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Alam.
Mr. Fahrul Alam.
Stay safe.
Mr. Torik, Pak Dupito Simamora, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mr. Yash,
Thank
Mr.
you, Bu.
Vipin.
Excellent presentations.
Nice to meet you all.
Three
It's really
speakers.
such an honor for
Thank
me
you, Doctor.
to join
Thank
this
you.
event.
Thank you.
Thank you all.